It's showtime from downtown Winnipeg. Maurices pass, a shot, they score! Shankly Connor scores! What a stop by Hellebuck! Nikolai Ehlers off the faceoff!
Ground Control, the official podcast of the Winnipeg Jets, hosted by Jets TV.
Welcome back to Ground Control, the official podcast of the Winnipeg Jets. It's been a minute, as the kids like to say, since we last podcasted. But we're back, and we're going to keep doing it weekly. We just had some things come up in our lives that just caused the schedules to be shuffled a little bit. As always, joined here by Jets TV's Mitchell Clinton and 680 CJOB's Jamie Thomas. And, of course, I'm your host, Tyler Esquivel. We got a great show for you here today. Lots to cover, clearly, as we haven't chatted in a while. The big news this past month, obviously, Paul Maurice stepping away as head coach of the Winnipeg Jets, so we'll give you a quick couple thoughts on that. Obviously, there's been some schedule changes with COVID and all of that great stuff. Dave Lowry taking over as interim head coach. He's had some time here to put in some work as the new head coach. Lots of practice going on here at Canada Life Center. We'll talk about some of the changes that this group is going through with Dave at the helm. Mitch is going to touch on the World Juniors being canceled, maybe postponed. We're not quite sure what the outcome is of that yet. Our guest, we believe it to be Nate Schmidt. We're crossing our fingers.
I think it'll happen.
I think it'll happen.
It's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to will this in.
You're going to find out in 5 minutes.
We're recording this before practice on the 31st at about 10 a.m. The text has been sent to Scott Brown, Senior Director of Hockey Communications.
Now you're calling him out right on the pod.
Yeah. To be fair, he said, I texted him this morning and said, hey.
How are you?
Well, I said, hello. I hope you're well. Hope you're enjoying this final day of 2021.
Send. And
then I said, hey, I'd like Nate Schmidt for the podcast if you please. And he said, I can certainly ask.
And there we go.
And so the ball is now firmly in Nate Schmidt's court.
Yeah.
Say that 5 times fast.
I don't think I'm not going to. After the guest,
I'd watch for that.
I am. You're going to have to be careful. After the guest, Nate Schmidt, of course. Week ahead, expectations. It's been some time off here for the Winnipeg Jets. They're taking on the Vegas Golden Knights, Arizona Coyotes, and Colorado Avalanche. Two of those teams are for the first time this season, so that should be exciting. And then Christian Reichel, he made his NHL debut right before the holiday break, and we'll close the show out with that. So without further ado, Mitch, I'll let you start things off. Paul Maurice stepping away. Just a quick thought on Paul and just your thoughts and what he meant to the organization.
Well, a ton. I don't think anything that I can say in the next little bit would even really sum it up. Obviously, you have that bit of continuity. He's been here, really for the majority of the time that I've been employed with the organization, and throughout has really just been like the nicest guy, like especially like away from the ice and everything. He's always like, cares how you're doing and how things are going at home and all that kind of stuff. Just a really genuine person. So that was the big thing. I think that's why there was such a big amount of shock and whatnot from the dressing room, because, this was, if he was like that with me, I can just imagine how he was with the players. You know what I mean? Like guys that he actually interacts with day in, day out. So clearly, the loss to the Washington Capitals, I think there was a little bit of some shock factor in that one. And I remember, like, you and I were down in the Exchange restaurant, Tyler, and usually the pregame show for a 7 o'clock game starts at 10:45, but at 9:40 the statement goes out, and we're like, well, and we see Paul Maurice is speaking at 10 o'clock. I was like, well, I guess we're going live in 20 minutes.
That was a bit of a...
That's how much of a shock it was to pretty much everyone. So, obviously wish him all the best. Like that's, it seems like such a small thing to say, but all the best to him. And all we can really say is thank you for everything that he brought to the organization and the community.
Jamie, you had the great fortune of sitting in some broadcast meetings with him as the color commentator on the radio side of things. Just what types of things did you learn from Paul, and just your thoughts on his departure?
Well, I think Paul, having worked in the media, understood that how the media could work to the benefit of the organization. So I'm speaking for him, probably felt that if he shared with us information that we could pass on to our listeners, and Dennis Beck and Kevin Sawyer could pass on to the viewers, that makes the knowledge of what's going on, and people would enjoy the broadcast a lot more while also learning something as well. So he was very cognizant of those types of things. Also, I kind of go along with Mitch, just as the human being. He's a fantastic person, and I had all kinds of time for him. And you work with somebody or see somebody pretty much every day for 4 years. It is a shock to know they're not going to be around. Players, you kind of understand the way things work because of free agency and trades and stuff like that. You get it. But with the coach, I just never saw a day where Paul Maurice wasn't going to be the head coach of the Winnipeg Jets. So the things I learned from him as a coach and as a human being, I'll never forget. So very grateful for the time that we had with him. And I'm sure, as we told people many times, if you just listen to Paul Maurice in his news conferences, you'll learn everything you need to know that he wants you to know. And he was very excellent at doing that.
So as it stands right now, the Winnipeg Jets have been practicing for quite some time. Obviously, right before the holiday break, the 2 games on the road, Nashville and Dallas, were both postponed. And then following the Christmas break, the Minnesota and Chicago game have been postponed. That was due to the reduced crowds. And then also coming out of that is the Seattle-Minnesota homestand. After this upcoming road trip, those games have been postponed as well. So not any home games in the near future for the Winnipeg Jets, but if you'd like to buy tickets for ones down the road, winnipegjets.com/tickets. Lots of great seats available to see your Winnipeg Jets in what I'm sure will be a fantastic second half stretch here as they try and push for the playoffs and make a little noise around the league. Mitch, we've talked about it at length already, but just a week of practice here. Just what benefits do you see here? I feel like this is almost like the perfect scenario in some way for a team who's bringing in an interim head coach and just trying to make some changes to the organization.
Yeah, and I think Dave Lowry's said throughout the whole process how valuable this practice time is. He said there's really not going to be a huge, massive, systematic change for the Winnipeg Jets, even though they've had these 6-7 days of practice over these last couple of weeks. It's really just going to be an underlining or an emphasizing of certain priorities, and the front of the net and the offensive zone and the defensive zone seems to be those spots. So we've seen a lot of I hesitate to call them battle drills, but that's pretty much what they are. It starts with like a forward and a defenseman in a corner. The forward plays the pass out to the point, and then the forward and the defenseman just battle their way to the front of the net. The forward tries to get position, and then another pair comes from the other side after that shot comes through. And it's just showing how, you can accomplish a couple of things with one drill. And they've done a number of those types of things. And then it's just kind of getting up in the ice, playing direct, playing fast, all those things that I think we've heard before. It's just kind of becoming a little bit more of an emphasis from Dave Lowry. And then I think it was Nate Schmidt that said, you do these things over and over and over again, it eventually becomes second nature, and that's what you want. Because when you play the game at this level, or any sport really at a high level, the amount of time to think while the game is going on is very, very, very small, says guy who, did not play a sport at a high level. But this is just what people tell me. So obviously, the amount of these skills and priorities that you can get under your belt in practice for long stretches of time. The Jets have had, a couple hour-long practices, some 50-minute practices. So they've been going at this for a while. I think they're ready for some game action, but no doubt the practice time has helped kind of reiterate a few things as they go forward in the second half of the season, if you will.
It's funny when we talk about practice being like, they practiced for an hour. Mm-hmm. Like, Pee-wee kids practice for an hour. That's the standard.
Yeah.
I remember when I got this job and they skated for like 20 good minutes and, that was good practice. What do you mean it was a good practice? It was 20 minutes.
We were practicing 5 times a week when we were in minor hockey. We'd lucky if we had one practice a week.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Oh, sorry. I don't want to speak for you guys in the Manitoba minor hockey system.
My one year we were out of a community club that only had outdoor rinks. And so they gave us 3 skates a week outside, and then the minor hockey association gave us 1 skate a week inside. So it was like 4 practice week.
Thank you for the indoor ice time.
2 of the outdoors were optional, so definitely took the optional.
I was going to say I'd be taking the option.
Yeah. Mitch mentioned, Jamie, Yeah, figure that one out.
It worked well.
Jamie Mitch had mentioned that there's not going to be a whole lot of systematic changes for the Winnipeg Jets, and that makes sense. Dave Lowry did say it in his opening press conference when he was introduced, was that he came here to work with Paul Maurice. So I can't imagine anything that Dave is going to be preaching, per se, is going to be a whole lot different. The messaging might be different. The way it comes across is going to clearly be different. Paul and Dave are two very different communicators, and that's okay. But just what have you seen from the group in terms, and I know we've played 2 games in the Dave Lowry era. We're going to call it an era. He's 1-1. But you know what? That Washington game, you just throw that one out. That was a tough day.
Yes, for everybody.
And they win against St. Louis in a great effort. So, and then we've had a ton of practice here. So, have you seen any changes in the group, maybe in demeanor, attitude, just uppityness?
Yeah, I it just goes into what Paul Maurice said when he stepped down as head coach, is that the message is still the same, just to be delivered differently. And you touched on that, Tyler. I think the best example for what's going to happen with Dave Lowry and the Winnipeg Jets is Rod Brind'Amour in Carolina. And we all constantly heard Paul Maurice refer to the fact that this team is like Rod Brind'Amour, how he played in that system, that the type of player he was. Dave Lowry was a hard-nosed type of player he knew his work and how he benefited the most on the ice is going to the front of the net, and he fought hard to get there. He fought hard to defend in the game as well. So maybe the Jets become an extension of Dave Lowry, and yes, you have to go to the front of the net, but with that message and the drills and all the stuff that they're doing here right now, I just see a little bit of a change, and I see it being talked out a lot more, even though it was something Paul Maurice emphasized daily with this hockey club. So from the practice that I've seen and listening to the players afterwards, it is different and almost nice sometimes to hear somebody else say something that you already know, or something that you're working on, because it's delivered differently. And that's how smart Paul Maurice is to understand what that is. So I just think they understand what's going on here. They're probably a little bit shocked at first about the change of coach, but also appreciative of the fact that somebody else is saying what needs to be done.
Mitchell, sad news this week in the hockey world. I mean, all around the world, it's been a tough handful of weeks given the COVID situation, and the World Juniors are a casualty of that. The Winnipeg Jets had 4 prospects in Edmonton and Red Deer. Cole Perfetti, obviously playing for Team Canada, was leading the tournament in points. Was just off to a fantastic start. Chaz Lucius was with Team USA. Obviously, he was drafted in the first round of last year's draft. Nikita Chibrikov, also a 2021 draftee. And then Daniel Torgerson, who was a 2020 draftee. He was playing for Team Sweden. And for Torgerson and Perfetti, it was their last kick at the can at the World Juniors. And there still is a bit of a glimmer of hope in terms of maybe playing the tournament later in 2022. But that's a long ways off. There's got to be a ton of planning that goes into that. But just a thought on the tournament being canceled, and just your thoughts on the Jets prospects and all the kids who worked so hard to be there for it to end this way.
Yeah, devastating in that regard, like for sure. You work extremely hard. You look at Cole Perfetti, and I remember when he was named to the team, how excited he was to get another shot at it, to try to get that gold medal and represent Canada. Every opportunity that these guys have to represent their country on the international stage is huge. And then, of course, a few days into the tournament, you start to see the reports from Chris Peters, of someone who's been on this podcast, been on our pre and post game show, a real smart draft expert. Obviously, would be very plugged into this event. Starting to see, there's positive tests coming up. Bob McKenzie, of course, was all over it as well. And then, then ultimately the announcement comes down, and I got to practice on what days that this is what happens between Christmas and New Year's. So I got to practice on Thursday, which was yesterday, and I saw Dennis Bayek sitting there, and of course Dennis was calling the pool with USA and Sweden and Russia, and I saw him and I said hi, and he said hi, and I was just like, I want to say it's nice to see you, but I know you'd probably rather be in Red Deer. And he said, yeah, like that was the case. So yeah, I mean, obviously the conversation about, whether, it's postponed or whether it can happen at another time of the year. I mean, you cross your fingers and you hope so, just so that these kids get that opportunity. But I also hope that opportunity gets extended to the women's under 18 that got canceled. Hopefully that can be an event that also gets rescheduled instead, because I think, you know, a lot of these kids deserve the opportunity to play in these tournaments. There's a very limited amount of time that they have the opportunity to do so. So if it's possible and it's safe and there's a way to do it, I mean, let's try to make it happen. But in the short term, at least, you know, in the next like week or so, you know, you just feel for all the athletes, the organizers, everybody that's involved in putting together an event like that.
Yeah, and you know, if they do shift the tournament to the summer months, I mean, hey, that'd be a heck of a couple of weeks sitting at the cabin watching World Juniors.
There we go.
I don't think anything gets better than that. All right, just on a serious note, I hope everybody's staying safe. It's a brutal time across the country and the world, quite frankly, and just stay safe and get vaccinated. That's your best defense against this brutal virus, and we'll all get through it. That's how it works. All right, coming up next, Nate Schmidt joins the podcast. We're going to talk quite a few things, as you can imagine, with Nate. Hope you enjoy the interview. Our first topic of conversation is going to be dips. And is there such a thing as a healthy dip? I'm not sure. He's going to answer the question.
Shop where the players shop. Jets Gear and TrueNorthShop.com are your authentic team stores. Make sure to stock up on all your favorite Winnipeg Jets and Manitoba Moose merchandise today. Visit one of the 5 Jets Gear locations or shop online at TrueNorthShop.com.
Hi, this is Nate Schmidt, and you're listening to Ground Control, the official podcast of the Winnipeg Jets.
Joined here on Ground Control, the official podcast of the Winnipeg Jets. Nate Schmidt joins me now. Nate, the Winnipeg Jets social media team had a bit of a question and answer thing as you guys were heading onto the ice a few days ago.
Yeah, I saw it.
And you said that your favorite thing about Christmas and holiday dinners is the dips.
Yep.
Healthy and unhealthy. I'm pretty sure only unhealthy dips exist. So enlighten us. What's a healthy dip?
Oh, goodness. I love all dips. I would say, so Brooks Orpik, I played with him when I was in D.C. His wife, Erin, made this dip. It's like with yogurt and spinach and carrots and all this other stuff. And it's honestly, you eat it with bread. And like the first time I looked at it, I was like, nah, there's probably no chance I'm eating this.
Yeah.
But you know, Brooks is one of the healthiest eaters I know, and so I was like, and he's like, no, it's really good, just try it. And I went over to his house for dinner. Sure enough, I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I got the recipe, gave it to my mom, and now she makes it every year at Christmas dinner, which is fantastic. It actually makes you feel a little better after going into like the fair. Jimmy Dean, like, you know, the queso dips and all that jazz. It makes you feel a lot better when you get a little yogurt and spinach and carrots instead.
Do you have a favorite of the unhealthies?
Oh, man. My sister tried a new one this year. It was pretty good. It was like it was a tweener. Okay. Half unhealthy, half healthy. You know, it had like, you know, tomatoes and beans and things like that, which are good. Yeah. You know, but it also has to do a lot about cheese. But like my aunt makes this something that's, you know, that cheesy Jimmy Dean type, you know, dunk the dip. You know, it's just nice and hearty. Let's just say that. Staying away from the scale the next day.
Yeah, no kidding. So you obviously went home for the holiday season. Just how was that? Who do you gather with in the Schmidt household?
Yeah, Christmas is my favorite time of the year. It's just a magical time of the year, and I love it. I think it's awesome. And fortunately, we got an extra day or two this year, and so my fiance and I, we spent about a day and a half with her family, about a day and a half with my family. Met up with some buddies for a little sushi happy hour one day. Nice. I think on the 22nd. So it was fun. You know, it's good to, you know, unplug and just be back home for a minute and see family and friends as well.
We're kind of in a day-to-day scenario right now. I'm not quite sure what's happening. Yeah. And you talk about going home, getting an extra day there. How do you handle this kind of time where you're just not quite sure what the next day is going to bring in terms of your schedule, given that you guys are so schedule-based?
Yeah, we're pretty routine-based creatures, right? We like to see the schedule, like to know when things are, when practice is, when days off are, and when games on, you know, what city you're going to next week. I think it's something that we get used to. But I think over the last year and a half, it's like anybody, you have to be able to adapt. And right now it's hard because we have games that are available to play in some places and not in others, which makes it hard because we want to play in front of fans at home, right? And that's what if you look at our record, we've been playing well at home,
Yes.
and so obviously you want to be there, and but we understand that there are factors you can't control, and so it is right now. Got an extra week of practice in. It's just been nice. I've really been able to work off all those dips that I ate over the holidays, which was good.
I was thinking about it yesterday. At a certain point later in the season, you guys are going to have games in hand on a lot of the teams in the division, I guess, just given based on where we are geographically.
Yeah.
Do you think about that at all? And is that helpful going down the stretch when you're pushing for the playoffs?
It depends on how congested that last little bit of the schedule gets. How these things end up playing out, because you're going to have to make the games up. It's going to be tough though, because you want to be close, right? But when you have a bunch of games at hand, it seems like, hey, we have a chance. You always give yourself a chance if you have a couple extra. So you have to make up as much ground as you can now, so that when you get into that time, you don't have to feel like you have to win every game.
Right.
In order to get in and get yourself positioned in a good spot. So I think right now this next couple weeks, especially as we kind of go through this little bit of a schedule, just hiatus in some ways. It's something that we have to be trending in the right direction, especially, we're going to play 3-4 games and have another 5-day break.
How do you think the last week has gone? Obviously, Dave's taking over, and he's sort of been able to impart some of his teachings on you guys this week. Just how have you seen it go so far?
Yeah, I think it's been a mini training camp, if you will. You kind of get a view into what that would look like. As a player, you like to want to keep playing, right? You want to keep playing, but at the same time, when you have a new coach and you have to go through some of these, new changes, new drills, things like that, and the schedule and all that stuff is changing around you. It was kind of nice to have a couple extra days of skating, getting your legs back. I don't feel like I have that post-holiday glut, So I think it's really nice to have this little extra time. But I think our guys are getting a little antsy now.
Sure.
Guys are getting a little bit, looking forward to that, that next game.
So the next game that you talk about is in Las Vegas. Obviously, you played a good portion of your career there, went to the Cup final with them. Just, are you excited to get back there and kind of just get on the ice and show them what you're made of?
Yeah, that's right. You know what? It was a special year. That first year was such a special year, and something that, whether hockey or no hockey, what happened with the city and whatnot, it was something. There was a lot of emotions that go along with that, and I think that will forever be with you. The guys that were there, that first year will forever be there, and forever have that bond with that town and with the people of Las Vegas. I think that's it's something that it's hard. It's hard to go back through and remember. But at the same time, we had a lot of fun, and it was an unbelievable year. And I still spend summers there, parts of summers there, and so it's you made a lot of good friends along the way, and it's fun. It's fun to always go back and put a beating on some old buddies. I can't wait. That's the fun part of hockey, right? Being able to go back and play against some guys and get into their ear. And I already know that it's going to be wild. It's going to be a great game. They're playing well. And for Stas and I, it's going to be a fun day. Yeah, no kidding. Playing in Winnipeg now, you've been here, 4 months about. Just how have you found the transition off the ice, on the ice, just everything about being a Jet? Yeah, you know what? It reminds me a lot about being growing up. Yeah. A lot of the things I used to do growing up and all the things I have, you don't really get a chance to do, the hunting, the fishing, the outdoorsy stuff. I haven't had a chance to do those things. I haven't experienced a winter really in a long time. Yeah. I haven't really seen snow outside of, visiting places. Right. And it kind of just brings you back home a little bit, right? And I think it's been a really smooth transition with the guys in the room and just everyone in the organization. It's been great. I think that after last year, which was a tough year, right. It was nice to kind of go into a year knowing you're going to have some normalcy, even though we're hitting a couple of speed bumps here again, with life outside of hockey. But that's just is what it is. So like I said, so far it's been good. Do you have somebody to shovel the driveway, or do you do that yourself? You know what? I did do it myself the first time or two. I'm actually staying at Cody Eakin's place. Okay. And so his stepdad was coming over and helping us out a little bit. So
Nice.
yeah, it has been a lot easier, especially recently when we had the big snowstorm.
Yes. You're playing with Josh Morrissey
Yep.
this season. Just what's that partnership been like? Obviously, it seems like he's really taken some strides this year, and you guys are obviously been really solid for the team.
Yeah, Josh and I are yin and yang, right? It's just we both bring a little bit of skating to the team and puck moving. I think that we're getting used to each other, and I think that as the years gone on, just that comfortable factor is getting more and more. And you rely on a guy when you can hear him and you talk to him, and you know their tendencies as the year goes on. That's such a huge part of it. And I think he, we've been talking about. He said the last couple of years aren't maybe what he wanted, and I think that he's really been really solid for us this year. And I think that the both of us together have been. Have only been getting better, and hopefully continue that trend.
Your personality, it's been talked about so much, very charismatic, outgoing, tons of words you could use to describe it. Just where does that come from? I don't, not everybody's like that.
Goodness.
Some people's parents aren't like that, and they can't get their kid to stop talking type of thing.
Goodness.
So just where does that come from for you?
Well, first, if you come to the Schmidt house, I'm probably the second quietest person at the house of the five of us. My family's pretty outgoing, but I wasn't like that growing up, really. I would only be like that around my family.
Sure.
It was hard for me to come out of my shell. And I think when I got older, it took me until I got through college just to kind of realize, I don't really want to live my life like that. I want to just be me, and if people don't like it, well, then tough on them.
Yeah.
And I choose to be me. And I've been so much happier ever since.
That's good. I mean, so you kind of touched on what I was going to get. I'm going to get deep here, but just is there a level of vulnerability? So when you come in here and you're I'm going to be myself, but I don't want to ruffle any feathers of people. Just how do you balance that when you're coming into a new environment?
Yeah, well, it is a little bit of a beam. You got to make sure you don't go off kilter too much at the beginning, but I find that, especially coming here, I knew Paul Stadzik, he knew me
right
from beforehand. I knew Wheels a little bit from beforehand. I knew Neil Pionk. So some of these guys already kind of knew my personality, and so it was a lot easier just to say, especially when I'd walk out of the room, guys would probably ask, is this guy really like this all the time? And they'd be like, yeah, he actually is like this all the time, so it's just not like a facade or something. But so that made it a lot easier for this transition, I think. And I did that song and dance, like I said, where you're just kind of, I don't know if people are going to like it, but I like who I am, and I hope that, I know a lot of people like the way I am. So I either they get on board or you just get annoyed by it. Hopefully it's the first part.
Yeah, well, we enjoy it around here, obviously. So when you're coming to a new team, we've always wondered this warm-up. Everybody has their own little thing in warm-up.
This is hard. This is hard. This is actually probably the hardest part about going to a new team.
How do you decide what you do and how so you're not crossing paths with somebody else or colliding with somebody or pissing somebody off?
First couple preseason games, quickly, and maybe the first but then again, you don't play with everybody in the preseason.
Right.
So it is interesting. For me, I do the same thing. It just has to be. I find myself kind of going around some guys certain days and be like, okay, I know I can't go there. That's where Stas stretches. Okay, let's cut back here. All right, well, now I know that Copper is doing his cutbacks there. Okay, I got to skirt back a little bit to the middle here. Maybe I change my route every once in a while, but that honestly is probably the most. I would say that is difficult. Also, remembering what you do. I'm telling you, when a year goes by and you're like, what do I do for warm-up again? I don't even remember what I do. And then all of a sudden it starts to come back to you the more you play.
Last question for you. You spent the first part of your career in Washington with Alexander Ovechkin. Do you have any OV stories? I know there's the tale he drinks pop like crazy during the games.
Yeah,
which is
washed his mouth out with Dr. Pepper.
Disgusting.
Yeah, you know what? He's just... He's an incredible human being. He's just something that he's like a bull playing hockey, right? He's just this large man that you just never know, when he could shoot the puck and it's rolling. I mean, it's just in practice, you just never know. A puck could be 6 feet behind him and pick it up and shoot it from that crazy angle. He's just such a natural, when the puck gets into his wheelhouse, which is a lot bigger, than most guys. If puck's 3 feet in front of me, I'm probably not catching it and getting rid of it in a second where he's got that ability. But, you know, he bounces around like a little kid, you know, like around the weight room, bounces on his like little medicine ball every, you know, he would come into the gym, and it's just, the guy just loves playing hockey, right? And I think his whole life it's been about playing hockey, scoring goals, and he just continues to marvel and continue to do it.
Nate, thanks so much for this, man. Really appreciate it.
No, thank you. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Winnipeg Jets fans, did you know that online 50-50 tickets presented by PlayNow.com are available for all Winnipeg Jets games? That's right. Whether the Jets play on the road or at home, you can participate in the game day 50-50 draw. The winner will take home half of the jackpot, with all proceeds in support of the True North Youth Foundation. Remember to buy your tickets on all Jets game days at winnipegjets.com/50-50.
Thanks so much to Nate Schmidt for joining the podcast. We hope you enjoyed that interview, as I'm sure you did. All right, the week ahead for the Winnipeg Jets. We talked about it off the top. Vegas Golden Knights to start. Then we have the Arizona Coyotes, and then the Colorado Avalanche. 3 pretty exciting games. Jets and Golden Knights, always a great tilt. Nate Schmidt obviously taking on his former team for the first time since they traded him. And then you have 2 divisional matchups. Arizona Jets looking to avenge the 1-0 loss here at Canada Life Center.
They're still steamed about it.
Oh, man, for sure. And then the Colorado Avalanche, the first matchup between the two. Again, usually pretty good battles between those two clubs. Guys, I'll start with you, Mitch. Just your thoughts on what to expect this week. It feels kind of weird going into these games, not having played for a little while. New coach is implementing some of his teachings. Just your thoughts on the expectations for the week ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just for the players, it's game action. That's like, it doesn't matter who the team is going to be on January 2nd. It happens to be Vegas. Weird wrinkle in the fact that it's an afternoon start. So there's that, you know, of course. I think even Dave Lowry said he touched on it a couple of days ago when he was talking about, you know, the team getting back into game action. He's like, you know, I've been in the building for those Jets and Vegas games, and there's some heat there. So looking forward to that. Always a really, really good game between those two clubs. And yeah, of course, you mentioned the Arizona game. That's going to be one that also they've apparently found some offense going toe-to-toe with San Jose in an 8-7 final. So watch out for that one. And then Colorado, I mean, always a good club, good kind of measuring stick team to go up against, and valuable divisional points on the line in that one.
Colorado is a bit of a similar case to Winnipeg, where I think they thought the start of the season was going to be a heck of a lot better than it has gone for them. Jamie, just your thoughts on the Avs and just the Jets' similarities.
Just they've had their own issues, right? Colorado had some issues with COVID. Of course, the Jets had their issues with COVID. It just, the expectations for the Avalanche might have been a little bit higher than the Winnipeg Jets. Let's be honest here. They're clearly a Stanley Cup favorite heading into the regular season. That didn't materialize from the start of the year. But as you watch things slowly develop here, they're getting their legs underneath them. They're starting to play like the team that they are. They're very difficult. They're quick in transition. You can't make mistakes against this hockey team. So, and anytime you go to Denver, it is hold on to your butts time. It has always been a challenge for the Jets to go play in Denver against the Avalanche on the Avalanche's home ice. So they have gotten better this year, and they will be a handful for the Jets to deal with next week.
I've seen my handful of turnovers at Ball Arena in the neutral zone. Nate McKinnon just screaming the other way. Wide open breakaway on Connor Hellebuck, who usually saves those pucks. Jamie, Christian Reichel, we'll end it here. He made his NHL debut. He's had quite a journey to that moment. He skated on the ice during warm-up for a solo lap with a grin, ear to ear. Just tell us about his journey and what it meant for him to make that first skate.
Right, and you know, to be undrafted and find your way to the National Hockey League, I think is special for anybody. It's special to get to the National Hockey League as a drafted player, never mind somebody that didn't find their way to hear their name called at said draft too. So he did not give up. Full credit to him. And that a lot of part of that probably goes into being trained by Brent Sutter for all those years, a guy that was just relentless in his play and certainly relentless as a head coach, and now running the Red Deer Rebels, the Western Hockey League. But, you know, he comes here, son of an NHLer, plays for the Manitoba Moose, does everything right year after year, and everything that's asked of him under Pascal Vincent, and then now, of course, Mark Morrison as well. So he's earned this opportunity, and I like that within an organization, if you recognize somebody that's worked hard, maybe they're not putting up the points necessarily, they've earned the right to play a game in the National Hockey League. So, talking to him in the walk-off interview in his NHL debut, said he got to talk to his mom because his dad was sleeping, tell him the news. Of course, Robert played the National Hockey League for an extensive period of time and was quite good, actually. So the fact that he didn't get to hear that news from his son because he was sleeping is pretty good. So you're just so excited for him, and you're kind of jealous because you love to be ice level to see that smile on his face, but you could see it on the screen on the scoreboard when he stepped on the ice, and just how you have that time to yourself. And you always think, man, just hit the net, and you're always watching those guys in that first shot. So not that you're thinking that they would miss the net, but it was a great night, and didn't play a whole lot, but the fact that first NHL game is out of the way for him is excellent.
A couple of news and notes to end things off. Andrew Kopp and Christian Vesalainen were the two lone players who ended up on the Jets COVID list through the holiday break. Christian Vesalainen returned to practice on Thursday. He said he was asymptomatic the whole time, and I don't know if you've heard, but his family came over from Finland for Christmas.
This is
the
brutal.
day they arrived. He tested positive, so he was unable to spend Christmas with his family. He was able to hook them up with an Airbnb at the last minute, and they just celebrated Christmas virtually 10 minutes away from each other, probably. So that's awful. So my heart goes out to that guy. That sucks.
Yeah.
Andrew Kopp, he managed to get home to Michigan, tested positive, and he will rejoin the club in Las Vegas, and hopefully will be in the lineup against the Golden Knights. Dave Lowry did say that he took his gear down with him, so I would imagine he probably has gotten some skates in. So not that he will have some catching up to do, but at least he's on the ice and skating. So, all right. Closing things out, it's New Year's Eve. Guys, any words of wisdom for 2022? It's got to be better than the last 2 years, I would imagine.
It has to be.
It's going to be.
Yeah.
Will this into existence?
Yes, I think. I heard something on the radio, and I can't remember what it was, but I remember hearing some researchers saying something about, we might be shifting out of a quote-unquote pandemic in July. And I'm like, I want to believe this. I really, really do. And fingers crossed it happens, or even happens faster. But yeah, all you can really do is stay safe and, be with your loved ones. You take it so day by day in this situation now. You just hope that better days are ahead. So I agree, Tyler. We just will this into existence, and 2022 will be a lot better. I
just like the fact that they're finally saying something positive. There's always been so much doom and gloom with every conversation on social media and through the news. There's got to be a light at the end of the tunnel here, and just to hear that, Mitch, is I think something that people need to hear, and there needs to be more positive. How do we get through this rather than this is coming? It's unstoppable, blah, blah, blah. There's just got to be some positive conversations here at some point. We've been through a lot as a planet, and certainly in this country. So it'd be great to have that. And just enjoy the Winnipeg Jets as much as possible through this upcoming 4 or 5 months period. Hopefully it's 6 months for this hockey club. It's important that these games are being played. It's important that we're going to be able to watch them, and hopefully soon people will be able to return to Canada Life Center to watch the Jets live again.
I'll steal a quote and end things off from one of my favorite movies, The Dark Knight.
Oh, that's a great place to go, yeah.
The night is always darkest just before the dawn.
Yes.
I'll leave you with that.
We don't even do another podcast now because that's just the way to.
Oh, my. Well, I'd like to do another one. Have a great Happy New Year, everybody. Stay safe out there. I hope you're having fun with some loved ones on this day. See you in 2022, and go Jets, go.
This is Big Ground Control, the official podcast of the Winnipeg Jets, hosted by Jets TV. For Jets news, videos, and more, head to winnipegjets.com.
Proceed when able.